So we have the equation of a circle, C, which is given by x squared plus 8x plus y squared minus 2y equals 0. And we're asked to show that the center and the radius of the circle C are the order period -4, 1, and square root of 17 respectively. So let's work this question out. Now, so the first thing we want to do is to write the equation that we're given for the circle, the equation of the circle. Next step, we want to write it in this format, which is going to be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where the center is hk and we have r being the radius. The radius of the circle. And c is the center of the circle. Alright, so to put it in that form, what we're going to do is we have the first two terms being the x terms and the last two terms being the y terms. So that's good so far. So what we can do, we can take this portion here and write it as a perfect square. So to do that, we write the first term, which is going to be x squared. Write the second term, which is going to be 8x. Then we're going to take the 8, the coefficient of the x term, then we're going to divide it by 2 and square it. So that's going to be 8 divided by 2 squared, which is going to be 4 squared. And of course we know 4 squared is what? 16, right? Well, let's leave it as 4 squared for now. Okay, good so far. So what we're going to do next, we're going to look at the fact that we would have added 4 squared to x squared plus 8x. Since we add in 4 squared to this side of the equation, the left hand side, we need to add 4 squared to the right hand side as well. So we're going to add 4 squared to 0, which is still going to be 4 squared, which is really 16. Next, let's rewrite or bring down the other two terms. We're going to do the same thing. Alright, so we're looking at this portion here. And so we're going to take the coefficient of the y term divided by 2. So that's going to be -2 divided by 2. And we're going to square our solution there, which is going to be -1 squared. -1 to be squared, to be exact, which is going to be +1, of course. So we can just write that as +1, and if we want to put a square on that, that's fine. Of course, this is the same thing as saying 1 squared, right? The answer is really 1, but of course we can put it as +1 squared. Now, since we added 1 to this side, we also want to add 1 to the other side as well of the equation. Okay, because we didn't have this +1 on the left hand side, so we have to add it to this side as well to keep the equation balanced. Just as we didn't have this on this side, which is 16, so add 16 on the other side as well. Alright, it's clearly doesn't matter if we have the 4 squared or 16 here, right? Or the 1 squared or 1 here, but because we want it to be perfect square, we want to ensure that the last term must be a positive term, okay? Alright, now because this is written as a perfect square, we can write this as the square of, now we're going to take the x from x squared, and the middle term is as a positive, so we're going to put the plus here, and we're going to take the 4, +4 from 4 squared, put it here. Alright, so this is what we have as the perfect square. Of course, if we are to expand the square of x plus 4, we'll get this on top here. How so? Well, once the perfect square, we want to remember to square the first term, x squared, right? Square x, get x squared. Square the last term, which is going to be 16, which we have here, which is the square of 4. Then we multiply x by 4, that gives us 4x, and we double it, which is 4x doubled, give us 8x. All right. If you have any challenges with that, then you can also check out some videos dealing with perfect squares. All right, factorizing as perfect squares. Same thing we're going to do for this portion. In fact, we can put a plus here. Notice that we have the format. We're kind of close to the format so far. We want to have the same thing here as well, right? We want to have the y term, and we need to figure out what term goes here. Well, again, you can think of it as y squared minus 2y plus the 1 squared. And so just as we took the y from y squared, we take the sign here, which is a minus sign, as we would have taken this sign here and put it here as a plus sign. And then we take the 1 from the 1 squared, which is going to go here. All right, and it's going to give us 17, because 16 plus 1 is 17. Now, of course, if you want to write it in this format here on top there, we can write it as x, open bracket, that is. And the plus 4 can be written as minus negative 4. Still the same thing, because if you subtract negative 4, you get a positive 4. Subtracting negative gives us a positive, it's a positive 4. All right, plus we have y. Since we have the minus already, we can just write it back. All right, so we have x minus h, so this is our h, to be squared, plus y minus our k to be squared equals 17. And this 17 is our r squared. So in terms of the center, our center is the negative 4, right? Because that's our h, right? This is our h, x minus h. All right, so if we were to, just to make sure that you're understanding what we're doing here, let me write down the general form for the equation of the circle. So you can see exactly what's going on there. Then we can clearly see now that the h here is really the negative 4. All right, so in terms of the center, given as hk, right, we have that same center being what? Negative 4. And the k, which is right here, is our positive 1. And so we have just proved that the center is indeed negative 4, 1. And in terms of the radius of the circle, see, the radius, right, we know this is r squared here, equal r squared. So r squared is equal to 17, right? So we can clearly see that r squared is equal to 17. And if we want to find r, we're going to square root both sides. So r is the square root of 17. All right, 3 marks.